Hi, everybody. Justine Froelker, author, speaker, certified Daring Way, and Dare to Lead Facilitator. And I want to talk about grief. I'm a grief expert. My book, The Complicated Gray, I thought was my faith testimony, but it's actually a grief book. I've done multiple videos on grief, and I'm going to kind of teach again because I've always said that we're all in grief because I'm not sure anyone's life has turned out the way they hoped, dreamed, and planned. And right now, more than ever, we are all in grief. Life as we knew it is over. We've had lots of disappointments and losses and changes, our fears. People are dying. Like, we are in grief. And so name it. Name it. Call it grief. Because again, when we name things, when we wrap words around them, they lose a little bit of their power. Not that we're resistant to them, but it helps us move forward with them and move through them, okay? And so in Brené's work that I teach, she talks about how grief has three components. The actual loss, what is missing? Well, life is over as we knew it. Like, there's a huge loss in that. We're working from home with our families from home. There's loss in that. We've had canceled plans, canceled trips, canceled graduations, canceled weddings. There's grief in that, okay? There's all this grief. So what is missing? What is the loss, okay? What is the hole? What's missing? And then there is the piece of feeling lost. Like, I feel lost. Like, who am I now as a speaker who does corporate training, who has no one to speak to because the world is shut down? Who am I as a mother who does not have her own children here on earth to parent? How do I still mother when I can't do the work that allows me to mother in many ways? So I got to reorient myself, the feeling lost part. So reorienting who you are today in this new life. And then finally, the longing part. It's the yearning. Like, I long for when I wasn't so conscious that a virus could be living on anything. I long for the time that I could not look at everyone who's coughing with great fear. I long for the time when we could just go out to dinner. I long for normalcy. And so what's the loss? The feeling lost, and the longing part. And so, like, name those things. I came up with this metaphor years ago, and we've heard the metaphor about grief in regards to, like, grief is like an ocean. Oh, the waves hit you, and like just ride them out. And like, I was just like, ugh. And it's helpful and so true. But years ago, I was working with a client who's going through a divorce that she did not want, and she's really struggling with rage. And I looked at her one session, and I said, you can keep jumping off the surfboard as you ride the wave of grief into the shoreline, like, if you want. Like, you can jump off the board. What you're also doing, though, on top of that, is you're jumping off the board and then picking up the surfboard and bashing the wave away. Like, you're actually going to stop it from coming. And you're not. The wave is coming. And for my second TED Talk, it was in California, and we were watching surfers, and I had this, like, another aha of this metaphor of grief in the ocean. And, like, all those surfers were, out in the ocean. They were all straddling their boards. They all were watching the horizon, all watching for the same thing. They all looked the same. And they would all see something that we couldn't necessarily see from the shoreline. And then you'd see them all respond differently. Some would paddle in to catch that wave. Some would catch it. Some wouldn't. Some would let it pass. Some would just, like, continue straddling the board, watching the horizon. Some would catch that wave and crash and burn. Some would catch the wave and jump off the board and try to bash the wave back, right? Some would catch that wave and ride it all the way into the shoreline. We will all respond very differently to this time and to this grief. It will look different for a lot of us. It doesn't mean that one way of responding to it is right or better than the other. It does mean that we need to have grace, that we're all moving through this really uncertain time with a lot of loss. It also changes in regards to how long it lasts or what it looks like after or when life returns to normal. This is trauma. And for many of us, we will have traumatic responses to this. One person might experience one thing and not have PTSD. The other person could. Their brain, for whatever reason, locks it in and PTSD symptoms show up. And that happens in grief. And so name it, because that gives you some of your power back. And let's watch the shoreline together and look at one another and say, like, we're in it together and this sucks. And I'm here, because that's how we move forward with grief. Grief will be with us for our entire lives because it's a loss. I will not have the hardest parts of my life define my whole story. I will do the work to make them a gift, because then they become my big story. I then can receive my healing and can serve the world with it. And when you're ready to do that work from this crisis, you'll heal a little bit more. And the world needs us. So, thanks for being here, and I'll see you next time.